All right, so welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome you to a session with Ash and Saman this evening. This is organizational agility using Scrum, Holacracy, and DDO. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Ash and Saman. Please welcome them this evening. And I'll hand it over to both of them to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. This is also my first Sydney Scrum meetup, although I'm not necessarily, not that I'm not in the community, I'm just new to the community. So thank you very much for having me and Saman tonight. We've been asked to do a little bit of an intro to start, to kick us off. I don't know, Saman, do you want to go first?
No, please continue.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name's Ashley Teal. I work for Lumery, sponsored by. I've been at Lumery for coming up to 3 years now. My title per employment contract is HR advisor, but I feel like it's very out of date, and we'll talk about dynamic roles later in the presentation. But I do come from a HR background, actually, so I don't have necessarily any formal training in Scrum or Agile. All of my learnings have come from work at Lumery over the past few years. And prior to Lumery, I was working in HR, in finance, accounting, consulting, business services, etc. And then I was finishing off my degree and all bits and bobs before that. I'm a very sporty person, so apart from like full-time work and life at work, I'm like super into netball, which is a Commonwealth sport. Played that very rigorously for like the last 15 years, so I'm not doing that anymore, so I'm trying to find a new hobby. But that's what I did or used to do with my spare time and my hobbies. So yeah, at the moment, just enjoying reading, cooking, hanging out with my husband and my dog at home, and going to Oktoberfest next month. But why am I here today? I guess I get a great sense of fulfillment working with people, for people, creating environments where people or employees are feeling enabled and fulfilled. I feel like my HR background really, and my the theory and learning through that has been quite an orange stage level of development. And so it's been such a breath of fresh air to learn about new ways of working. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be on this journey organizationally with Lumery, but also on an individual and personal front as well. It's really, really teaching me a lot about myself, but also, ways of working in the process too. So really happy to be here tonight and share what we're doing, what we're doing over at Lumery. Over to Saman.
Awesome. Thank you, Ash. So my name is Saman Aftarian. I'm also working at Lumery. I've been with Lumery for 2.5 years now. And I think, the reason that we are here tonight is to share this journey that we have been on since almost 2 years ago now. There's so much to it that like all the struggles and the learnings and also successes and failures that we felt that, we needed to pay forward to the community. My background, I have studied software development, but I only worked as a software developer for a couple of years. Very early on in my career, I understood that I'm not a good developer. So I switched to the people side of things, worked for a car manufacturing company for 7 years. And I had my own bakery for 2 years. That was a fun detour. I learned a lot from that. And then 10 years ago, I came to Australia from Iran. And since then, I've been immersed into the whole agile ways of working and coaching as a profession. Now, the big why behind why I'm here tonight is the passion for self-organization. And a recent experience in what happened in Iran. I'm not sure if you were across the recent unrest and all the drama that was happening in Iran. What was interesting about it specifically was the fact that people had to self-organize. They were forced to self-organize. They could not have a leader because it wasn't safe to be a leader and to be known as a leader. It could cost you your life. And the magic of self-organizing for your freedom, it was something that I experienced. I've got a few fellow people from Iranian background and someone from Iran tonight as well. So that's a big why behind this. I don't see this as just a fancy way of doing business. This is connected to my core values, and I believe it had got the potential to change the world. Here we go. Ash?
So the what and the why of what we're going to share tonight. So we don't necessarily have a lot of time to go super deep on all of these topics. We're really just wishing to share everything at a high level tonight. We do have a little bit of Q&A at the end. But I mean, it's our hope to also share some of these things in a bit more detail via blog posts. We did say that back in March. I think we've done one, or Saman's done one. So we're a bit behind, but we'll try to do better so that we can share our journey. So follow us on LinkedIn and stay connected, please. So we'll just touch on the concepts and practices that we've experimented with. So what we'll cover, so why the change? So and why specifically in Lumary's context. So we'll set the scene for our change journey that we went on. We'll share 3 experiments, the 3 change initiatives, which were inspired by Teal, Holacracy, DDOs, and a few of the other theories and practices that we'll share tonight. And then at the end, we'll share overall learnings as well from a personal perspective, but then also from a collective level as well. And why? So why share what we share in this presentation? Well, really, it's about encouragement. It's about inspiration. So it's a hope that we do inspire you to start your own journey or to continue on the journey towards becoming self-managing and a learning organization. It may seem like a big task, or the change being quite massive. It is possible. So we're hoping to share some possibilities of what's good enough and what's safe enough to try today. And the last point there, just teal dots in an orange world. So teal's not going to happen overnight. It's a journey, of course, as we all know. And so there'll be bits of orange, bits of other colors here and there. But again, what's good enough, safe enough to try, and what can you start with? So that's what we'll be covering tonight. And I'll hand over to Saman to get us started.
Yeah, thanks, Ash. And Rowan and Derek reminded us that some of you might not be familiar with some of the concepts that we are going to introduce tonight. We just heard about some colors, so teal and orange. That's a reference to spiral dynamics, and also a book from Frederick Laloux called Reinventing Organizations, which talks about the evolution and development of organizations and societies on different levels. Teal is basically the highest level of purpose-driven, self-organized, basically organization. And also, again, one of the other reasons was that every time that we were being challenged by some of the experiments that we were doing, status quo creeps in, and people want to go back to the safety of the old world. We were coming across a new book, a new blog post that other people were sharing their journey, and it was always encouraging to see that this is not rare. People around the world are actually making these changes. So setting some context about Lumary and why we needed to change. Lumary is the start of a scale-up business. Basically, it's a healthcare tech provider. We've got a stack of software technology and services, and that helps with specifically we started in the NDIS sector in Australia, and then expanded to aged care, now allied health. And also we've got a product in US for applied behavioral analysis. That's basically like autism, and to support basically healthcare workers in that area. Around 2 years ago, we went through a capital raise round after we have proven the first product in the market and the fact that it worked. The business chose to become a deliberately loss-making company and to basically go faster and serve this industry, this community faster. Our two co-founders are very purpose-driven, and that's why they choose to basically get money, borrow money through capital raise to go faster. And around that time, we went through a rapid growth period from a core team of, I think it was less than 50 to 150 over, like I said, less than a year. And that introduced a lot of challenges. Challenges around losing our startup culture, and we were experiencing a phenomenon that many scale-ups experience, and that's basically having more middle management layers and more structure. And that's what you do normally when you are challenged with rapid growth or any type of growth. You think that you need to apply more control to stay on top of things, and that comes with a cost. There's this Dunbar's number, which talks about 150 being a critical number, that around this number of staff in a company, you need to go into become a bigger, established organization with hierarchy and all the bells and whistles that comes with it, C-level titles and senior execs. Again, the experience was that we were losing that culture and people didn't like it. And that was a good trigger for us to start thinking about what else is possible and what's out there. The connection that the core people and the co-founders had with people, that was lost as well. So that was one of the first challenges that we were experiencing. Cool. Next slide, please.
So just picking up on the other challenges that we were facing. So in the time, we're finding that departments were becoming more and more siloed, with little communication, coordination between them. You know, things like meetings were locked down, not publicly shared, like protectionism essentially was happening. So, and information not necessarily being documented or handed over. And so there was just, you know, a lot of information lost. There were tense relationships because people from, you know, different departments hadn't been working together so closely, so that trust and that connection, that relationship hadn't necessarily been built yet. We also didn't necessarily have complete feedback loops, so from our customer facing teams as well, so and back to our product development teams. So all culminating in not necessarily having the most united customer front. So it could have been a bit confusing to our customers in terms of, you know, what we were working on, why we were working on, and just general roadmap. So there were lots of touch points with our customers, but they weren't necessarily like talking together and in sync together. And of course, that all culminating in conflicting objectives. So, you know, our sales team is optimizing for meeting sales targets. Our delivery team, our customer onboarding team is optimizing to meet project deadlines. Our product team is building products not necessarily fit for market, but just to like meet what our sales or our delivery team have signed up to. So it's just all, you know, it's all happening. And overall culminating in a disconnected team. And as Saman said before, like we'd lost our startup culture, we'd lost that fun, we'd lost a little bit of that vibrancy. And so, yeah, we were thinking, what had happened and where to from here?
Yeah, so layer that with this concept of Conway's law, which talks about any organization that designs a product, a system, will be very likely and replicating the structure of the communication lines or the org structure. So if you've got a disconnected structure with silos, guess what? Your product and your services are going to be disjointed, and that lack of integration will happen in the product and the services that you provide. And exactly that was our experience. So now we have multiple products. The sharing between those products were not happening. If customers were using multiple products, that was another challenge. The integration and the seamless experience between those products and the product user experience was not met as well. And that whole disconnect between the frontline workers and the backend, basically devs and the support staff, that was broken, and we could see that happening. And that had a massive result that we see in the next slide. Some of you might be familiar with this concept of the chasm. Us being a startup and introducing new product to a market that had some exposure to this, but it was new to technology. So just a bit of background for people outside of Australia. NDIS was a basically insurance scheme that the government introduced to create basically efficiencies. I'm not sure what are other reasons behind it, but was basically give control and power to the recipients of care instead of care providers. Previously, care providers were basically receiving a lump sum of money, and they had the freedom to choose to basically serve as many people as they could without any efficiencies. Many of our customers are non-for-profits with minimum or low levels of organizational maturity. And that's where we came in. It was easy to sell to basically innovators and early majority, but very soon we hit a chasm that we could not see it coming. Why? Because our organizational structure and our systems, internal systems, were not allowing us to see and hear the feedback. There was a bend in the road. We did not see it coming, and sales started to drop. We were not basically selling to the old crowd. Now the early majority were asking for more mature product with more proven outcomes that they were after, and we did not have those. And that was caused by everything that was happening at home. And so that created the urgency for us to be able to talk about change. So talking about change management and the first step of the Carter model, that's it, creating the urgency of the change. And we had a lot of conversations about why we are in this pickle that we were back then. And we used that to basically drive the changes that we wanted to.
More on the urgency front and speaking to more around change management. And Saman just went through the customer side, but then we wanted to check and get a sense for what was happening on the inside internally for Lumery. So to kick off our change journey, we started by going through the assessment phase of the enterprise transition framework, a framework from Agile 42. So we wanted to understand, we'll use this framework to understand where we are now and what areas we wanted to see change in. And by knowing this, we could understand where we wanted to go. So we started to promote the culture and principles of teal organizations to begin with, like wholeness, evolutionary purpose, and self-management, and seeing how the rest of our team reacts to that and if it's something that they wanted to explore further. And to gauge how the rest of the team were reacting, we engaged in many sense-making exercises. And sense-making has become a really big part of how we understand problems and how we think about potential solutions. And so the first example, which you can see on the right-hand side, was a workshop that we ran with leadership. We went through education on spiral dynamics. So that's the call out to like teal, orange, amber, that like the colors that you'll hear about, and teal concepts. And we ran through a sense constellation exercise. So through running that exercise, we learned that we wanted to move more towards teal, where you can see like the yellow stickies are from where the purple stickies are. So we wanted to move more towards teal concepts, but not in every single way. We wanted to understand what works for us, and we knew it was going to be a journey to get there. But that was a really interesting insight for us, that it wasn't just, oh, yep, we want teal everywhere. It was, okay, this is a little bit more palatable for us where we're currently at in our level of development, org development. And we were willing to push that a bit further in some areas than others. So that was a really interesting learning for us. Other sense-making activities include employee engagement surveys. So we weren't only using employee engagement surveys to inform our initiatives or change actions. We were also using them, the results and the scores with regards to micro narratives as well. AI assisted micro narratives as well for sense making. So what I mean by that as well, it's like we have a sentence at the end of the engagement survey, something like, in one sentence, please describe your experience working at Lumery. And the platform we use tags a positive, neutral, or negative sentiment to that comment. And it also provides one or two like key factors. Is this about engagement? Is this about leadership? Is this about company confidence? Is it about learning? And so we're able to see sort of across that question, but there's, you know, up to 57 questions, comments, and seeing those themes and making sense of it. So all in all, we learned that we weren't doing well in things like specifically feedback and autonomy and enablement, that our people were generally feeling or starting to feel a bit disempowered, and were generally feeling frustrated and our previous ways of working were contributing to this sense. And so this again was the internal and collective urgency that we needed to learn to solidify to go along our change journey. And the example on the right-hand side is another way that we're doing sense making through triads, or this example is a dyad, asking people to provide their perspectives one-on-one as to not invite groupthink into the results. And yeah, just again, sense making's become a really, really big thing for us in any case, but also in this understanding our change journey.
So a quick one as a reference to when we refer to sense making is a complexity science practice. When you're trying to operate in a complex environment, you use narrative and macro narratives specifically in different shapes and forms to see patterns of your system. If you want to look it up, follow work of David Snowden specifically around this, which, you know, the word sense making instead of making sense is the term that complexity and system thinking, specifically sciences, are talking about. It's a very hot topic these days. But what you're doing, you're creating a fitness landscape, basically based on micro narratives. Instead of, let's say, look at NPS score or employee satisfaction of, you know, from a scale of 1 to 10, tell us how satisfied you are, versus having a story behind the rating and creating a fitness landscape like a contour map or the bubble charts that you just saw, that gives us a sense of the pattern that is happening in the system. And if you're, let's imagine every 6 months, you're painting the same picture of the patterns, you will see how the organization is moving towards a specific direction. And it was funny to see that, for example, we will talk about company confidence as a factor that went down during all these changes, but we could see it. And it was a visual that we could help us to make sense of the situation. Mm-hmm. So how did we go through the change journey? And it was a topic of conversation today. Again, what is the best way to help the organization basically adopt these models? So first of all, we did a lot of discovery work going through many frameworks. TL concepts, Holacracy, Sociocracy, DDOs, the unfixed model, safe, less, you name it. We wanted to see what's out there. And that was a big part of the discovery with the community. We had a group of change champions that basically were interested to join us. We were having focus sessions and basically, first of all, exploring what is possible, what is out there, and then choosing to go for a deep dive in specific topics from each of these concepts. Again, the same group going for a deep dive, and in many cases, simulating or having a real experience of some of those practices. Let's imagine we talk about, decision-making models, and specifically consent-based decision-making model, which is very common in Holacracy and Sociocracy, and having a simulation to understand what does it feel, how it works, to use that to basically cross-pollinate in different areas of the business. So have local agents in the system that can go and take what basically we have explored and apply it in their context. In many cases, we try to have us as coaches go into the different departments or different value streams. We talk about our structure a bit later, but they were not working. But by enabling change agents from those teams to go back to their team and apply whatever they've learned in their context, that was one of the best ways that we could enable these changes. We did talk about the edge theory of change, which is an ORSC concept. If you move to the next slide, please. Organizational relationship systems coaching. basically talks about an edge theory. Imagine that the left side is where we are now, it's called primary. The right side is the secondary, where we want to be. And we use a few of the principles there. One of them was honoring primary. We learned that in the hard way by sometimes challenging, let's say, project managers who were still loving their Gantt charts and specific dates and wanted to go for a predict and control model. And we challenged that without saying that actually works in some cases. By the way, thank you for the job that you have done so far. So not honoring the primary was not helpful. We learned in the hard way that please remember to honor what is already being done, what is the current state. That helps them to be willing to listen to you and come across. Another concept was that you can see that the image of the kiss. So kissing each other over the edge, giving each other encouragement and love during going through challenging times. Also painting a picture of the future, or what does that future look like, and crossing the tiniest edge. You see that arrow at the top? What is something small, good enough and safe enough for now that we can try, that enables us to see what it can look like on the other side? And sometimes zigzagging, go for a visit and come back. That's okay. And we have zigzagged a lot actually recently because of some financial challenges. We saw the organization go back and show some orange behavior. And I was so down. It's like, why we have gone back? It feels like, we have not done a good job. And I checked with one of the other coaches. And I said, like, in many cases, it is okay to, under financial stress, to go for a more centralized leadership model to be able to move faster. In a chaotic situation when COVID was happening, we needed to have some centralized, let's even command and control ways of controlling the situation, get to a more stable situation, and then continue on self-organization. Cool. Let's move forward.
Thanks, Saman. And talking about a change and the way forward, and when we were thinking about, hey, like what initiatives do we want to center on, or where should they land, we looked at and we turned to integral theory, Ken Wilber's integral theory. So we knew that for change to be successful, we knew that we wanted to cover all 4 of these dimensions. So we kept and still keep integral theory in mind when approaching and going through change or dreaming of initiatives. And in Agile and Scrum, as Saman tells me, we tend to spend a lot of time in Q2 with Scrum practices, product development practices, and some of us are aware of Q4, upstream, changing org design, etc., with limited focus on the other 2 dimensions, 1 and 3. So we have, all in all, resulting in a focused external right and a neglected internal left. And we tend to neglect or provide supporting initiatives in those other dimensions. So this all leading to a situation where you might have, good individuals, but in bad systems or less effective systems, or, really great systems, but, unaware individuals, ending in this like collective narrative where success is just hindered, whichever way you look at it. So with all of this in mind, we designed our initiatives to cover all 4 of these dimensions. So we could, the hypothesis is to have self-aware, competent individuals operating in a well-designed environment with a dynamic and fun culture. And this leads us to our first experiment.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ash. If you take one thing from tonight, that's the previous slide. The 4 dimensions of change and Ken Wilber's model. Very important. It gives you a compass that reminds you all the dimensions of what you need to address as change agents, as Scrum Masters, coaches. Thank you. So the first experiment was informed by this fact that structure determines performance. And if we wanted to be an agile business addressing the complex needs of healthcare industry in EU and US, we needed to have an organizational structure who's agile enough that enables us that. And we could see that, all the challenges of local optimization between different departments, product team not talking to the delivery team, sales team wanting to optimize for, local incentives like my bonus, and coming at as a cost to the product team, all the fun that you already potentially have experienced in your professional life. So some of the concepts that we ended up experimenting with were basically circles in Holacracy. Other names for it, value streams. We actually call them value streams, which are basically cross-functional teams across all the areas of the business that are needed to deliver value to our specific target market. So basically, and now I'm talking about pre-sales all the way to customer support showing up in one basically value stream, and having dedicated ceremonies, specifically Scrum ceremonies, that enables them to connect with each other. I'll talk more about how actually those are working. But, as I said, basically moved from a hierarchical organizational structure to more of a, I'm very conscious of using flat. There's actually, different levels, but the levels are more organic. Ash will talk about that a bit in a few minutes. But basically, instead of the functional lines, we moved to a more self-managed structure, which basically was a value stream with some supporting capabilities. We'll talk about those supporting capabilities as well. And so you're roughly looking at it, just making sure that this is not a matrix organization, just trying to paint a picture of, imagine that for each of the target markets, so let's say allied health, disability care, aged care, ABA, if we've got a value stream, that value stream is customer facing, because we need to make sure that all the people on the team are exposed to the reality of the market, are directly connected to the market and receive feedback from it. And then as minimum people outside of the value stream in supporting capabilities. Recent experience was that the sales team wanted to be across as a capability, multiple value streams, because many times the solutions that they were selling were across multiple, including multiple products. But now we have recently learned that that tribal bond of being part of one team in a value stream drives specific behaviors which are really needed. And we've ended up pretty much doing specific, sales exec joining all the ceremonies of those teams. This whole big machine is running on a Scrum, basically, cycle. Not everyone is on the same cadence, but basically the cadence has been determined by all the reps from different value streams, making sure that it enables us for the basically shared people to attend as many ceremonies as possible. You in this model, you might have a challenge of, your director of engineering that still has got a minimum impact on this designing the overall architecture, wanting to show up in 4 different ceremonies in the same week. So that becomes a bit of a challenge. I'm guessing that some frameworks like less and others will have some ideas about this, but mainly making sure that you make it sustainable when you're designing your cadence, when you have multiple product teams. And functions like Ashley's people and culture, or now called an employee journey value stream, serving the internal customers, has got enough exposure to those value streams as a supporting function as well. Cool. Moving forward.
This side. So in 2 organizations, we know that hierarchy of power is natural and it is not flat. Where there's distributed leadership and not one person is in charge, everyone shares in that leadership at any and all times. So we move from rigid hierarchies to hierarchies which are natural and organic, where people step up based on their skills and passions and organizational needs too. So the passion and the purpose is there, but there also needs to be an organizational need too for the thing to come to life. And where the work is being managed and it's not the people aren't being managed. So we've had a lot of learnings so far within this structure. And when you try to self-organize in this way, but people or the system aren't necessarily mature enough yet, the power vacuum has caused some of our managers to want to go back into hierarchy, into orange or amber. So under pressure, there's that tendency to go back to what was before, or what we know and what feels comfortable as well. You know, the future is unknown, the structure's all unknown. Throw it out, let's go back, this is good. So we've had a few of those conversations where we've had to, or Saman has, coach around and you know, just ask powerful questions and, you know, course correct. Another point and another really great learning is that it's a complete mind shift, like different mind shift as well in way of working. So like suddenly people are so used to being managed, you know, being checked up on by a manager, like where's this up to? How are you doing? Do this, do that. But what we found is that potentially some people actually prefer to be managed now on the other side of it. So and others who are actually like leaning into the change and really happy to manage themselves and are finding, you know, real traction in this environment, they're absolutely flourishing. And, you know, give them the access and do what they need to do and they'll run with it. So it's been yeah, such great learnings, for better or for worse, but just a really key call out that, you know, you're working with humans, we're all complex, and that's been a real pattern that we've seen come out. Not taking away the hierarchy, because there's, you know, natural hierarchies happening, but in this flat, using commas, structure. And the next thing that we wanted to talk about is one of our other experiments as well. So this is all about dynamic roles, and this is a concept adopted from Holacracy as well. And so within this environment where, you know, suddenly you don't have, you know, managers, everyone is now, you know, has, you know, the power, the control, the authority. So how do you know who's doing what as well? Like, how does the work get done essentially? And given that our roles look a bit different now, and because now suddenly you've got, you know, a manager or previous manager in this system, what's my role? What does this all look like now? So enter dynamic roles. So what dynamic roles does is it allows us to make our informal networks formal. So what's, you know, what are we doing outside of our current or traditional role descriptions that aren't being like written down anywhere? That's what we want to capture into dynamic roles. We want to create enablement. We want to create role clarity in this seemingly unclear environment and complex environment. So dynamic roles allows us for greater flexibility as well, because you go from like previously like one role title, one job description into having, you know, multiple different dynamic roles. I think of it like the different hats you would wear on a daily or like weekly basis. When I'm processing payroll on Monday, I'm wearing my payroll you know, officer dynamic role. And today when I was helping with remuneration review, I was probably wearing my HR manager hat. And so I'll just painting the picture and a few examples as to what those dynamic roles could look like. But it means that with dynamic roles, you can energize more than one role, or a person could energize more than one role at a time. You might choose to like not energize a role and then someone else energizes that role instead. All in all, just a very dynamic approach to the like traditional job description. And our process for going through and initiating dynamic roles was to start with an end-to-end mapping of value streams. So we wanted to understand what roles were required across those value streams, those like lines on the last slide or 2 slides ago that Saman shared. So what roles were required to deliver value to our customers and in our capabilities. So after we had that, went through a process of competency mapping and understanding which skills were needed to deliver value in each of those roles. And so once we had our list of roles and competencies, then essentially we handed over to teams to self-select into those dynamic roles. And there were challenges with that as well. Like on a few instances, there were like multiple people like gunning for the same role. And so, you know, what could be a point of tension turned into, hey, like, how do we work out, like, how do we co-collaborate? Like, how do we work together on this? So it really opened opportunities to have, you know, really like wholesome conversations too. And lastly, sort of how does this all work in the day-to-day? We're still getting used to it. It's not yet a habit. So I'd love to say that we do this all the time. We're getting there slowly but surely. But any roles that change or update in their accountabilities, or like new roles that come to light that we haven't necessarily captured previously, they should be communicated at regular intervals throughout usual team ceremonies, if it's retros or if it's another team ceremony. But that's over to the teams to self-organize and make sure that they're keeping their role database, for lack of a better word, updated as they go. Over to you, Simon.
Cool. Ash, we've got 10 minutes to go. We might need to choose what we talk about. So very quickly, one of the major shifts and changes that this value stream concept enabled us to do was now enabling that team to become a micro enterprise or mini enterprise within the business, a team that is aware of their basically P&L, you know, their financials, they're responsible for their commercials. It has taken us almost a year to be savvy enough to talk about, you know, financials with devs and you know, accountant people, me included. We had an internal training to be able to do that. Also having the data that enables us to talk about what is our expenditure and how much we are selling. Use that to inform better decision making. If you want to explore this a bit more, look into a few books, but Holacracy talks about the hire model, hire the appliance maker. They've got a lot of good things around how you can do basically P&L. So what you're doing is you're saying that, hey, Allied Health team, you are a team and you're a mini enterprise within the business. You need to think about if you're commercially viable or not. That's basically the concept that you're doing. That enables the team to have the information that is needed to make decisions about if they're a good team. Are we going to build the next feature or not? Is this a good decision to build this next feature? So that enables a next level conversation of not becoming a feature factory, all the fun that comes with it. This part is real in the business now. There was a lot of tension, but we have managed to do that. And I think it is early stages, but very, very good stuff coming out of it. One of the major things that this model enabled us to do was to launch a product, complex product, less than 6 months into the market. So time to market, when you've got a team who is enabled to basically have all the competencies that they need to launch a new product into the market, was the outcome of this. Let's fly through the next slide. We don't need to talk about that. Let's jump to the next one, please.
Awesome. So this is a concept from DDOs, deliberately developmental organizations, and specifically the book reference here is An Everyone Culture by Alex Leahy. So we were facing two challenges: retaining and attracting good talent and enabling feedback and learning, and wasn't part of our day-to-day, wasn't continuous at least that was our experience at Lumery. And so what we wanted to do was create a culture around this, creating a culture around continuous learning, continuous coaching, continuous feedback. And so we picked up that book, Everyone Culture, and learned together about some of the practices that some of the organizations in the book, there's plenty of case studies to learn from. And then we were thinking, what could work for Lumery? What could work in our context? And so we went through a process of looking at Groove, and which are developmental practices, which we can go through in the next few slides' time. But essentially, all in all, what the ethos for for this is that learning is an expected part of work. It's how we do work. It's just blended into work. It's not something that's, I mean, it can be something that's formal, but it's just how we do our work. It's through our work. And so inevitably creating an incubator for people's development. And I'm really proud of the fact accessible and inclusive learning for everyone. So we don't have any like identified like high potentials that are going to programs or anything like that. Like all of the learning at Lumery is open, public, accessible, and inclusive for everyone. And so if we wanted to run you through a few of the developmental practices, one of them is called our support, we call them supporting lines. And what we did was, because we didn't necessarily want to continue with the manager role as traditionally known, we broke that role into two roles. So an accountability line and a supporting line. Essentially, accountability line is the impediment remover. They log the, they approve the leave requests and do the day-to-day. But supporting line is the person who is providing ongoing developmental coaching, mentoring, advice, feedback from those four different stances. Essentially like enabling an individual on their development journey. And as an employee, I can choose who my supporting line is. If I, choose Saman for 3 months and then my, developmental goals change, then I can move to someone else. It's not fixed. Each individual can, choose who their supporting line is, and you can have multiple as well. Supporting line is also the person who will go through all of the things on the right-hand side. So other professional, personal developmental tools that we do have in our toolkit too. We'll talk about bios, we'll talk about 360 feedback. We won't have much time to talk about PPT check-ins and competency mapping today. But to speak to PPT check-ins quite quickly, it's just our non-traditional performance review. It's a coaching conversations. We don't do performance reviews at all in the traditional sense. It's more so centered around what's your one big thing, what's your goal. It's an adaptive challenge as well, so not a tactical or a technical challenge. It's something about you, something that you've got to work through, and so that is what your supporting line will support you with. And that, sorry, I'm going all over the place. The supporting line is modeled from that book, but a company, Next Jump, and it's a case called Talking Partners. Now, our bios, that's a different case study. That's from Bridgewater called Baseball Cards. And what our bios are basically a self-authored guide to our own personal operating model. They tell us about you as a person, as me, Ash, or you can see Saman's on the his bio on the screen here. There's a lot of fun with it. People add photos of their hobbies, etc., or who they would be if they're an avatar. But the meaty part is the 4 areas that are on the screen. So my forehand, my backhand, my developmental edge, and my growth feedback. So, and this is all public to everyone as well. So I can go into Saman's, I can go into anyone else's bio and see what they've self-authored in terms of what their strengths are, what they're good and consistently doing consistently well at, and what they're not doing consistently well at, and what that means I can guardrail others who I'm working with. It means I can give and receive feedback quite specifically to others too in a team setting. And all in all, it's just a great connection piece too, like let alone development. It's just connection, like learning about each other, and bridging that connectedness across. We do have a remote workforce as well. So yeah, these bios are always in draft. We're always on our journey. And so they're updated very, very regularly. And that's something that can be brought into the supporting line relationship as well. Do you want to do this one, Simon?
Oh, yeah. So very quickly with the limited time that we have, 360 feedback in a coaching fashion is something that we are practicing at the moment. This is inspired by LCP, Leadership Circle Profile, which I highly encourage you to learn more about. The book Mastering Leadership by Robert Anderson. But basically, the process is for us to have once a year at least a 360 feedback in different domains of task and achievement, growth and development, relationships, and also your hidden commitments, your what we call reactive gifts, or LCP calls reactive gifts, which is basically your tendencies that might not show immediately. So we get feedback in a 360 fashion, and it's delivered and debriefed by our leaders, which are trained as coaches as well internally. So that's one of the practices that we do.
Awesome. And this is really just a zoomed out view about how all of those practices come in together. So timeline of, regular one-on-ones that an individual might have with their supporting line. And at each one-on-one, you can bring in the individual, and the supporting line can bring in the 360 feedback, the bios. It could just be a ongoing coaching and mentorship partnership. That's really the key to the relationship, is that it is ongoing developmental conversations where there is coaching, mentoring, feedback, and advice along the way, and bringing different tools to inform that, and deeper self-awareness for the individual.
Cool. So first of all, apologies for bombarding you with all of these different names and frameworks and books. We hope that these are references for you to dig deeper later. But the main message are the learnings and the struggles. This journey was messy and is messy. We struggled individually. We struggled as a team. It wasn't easy, but definitely possible. We are still building an airplane while flying it. We felt that. And in many cases created tensions that were really challenging.
Yeah. And even from even our tools that we work with on a daily basis, we broke our HR system, it does not compute accountability in a supporting line, and the dynamicness that is that. So now we're talking about, we should probably, develop our own stuff. And then we're like, oh no, what are we doing? But we're going on the journey. So it's just things like that you wouldn't really plan for, but have come up and really surprised us. I found as well that context is important, and localizing. So what is different, an individual level, at a team level, is so different to what could work in this team versus this or this individual. And so just really paying respects to that and acknowledging that as well, that it's not all a centralized thing. It's, everyone or every team is at their different part in the journey. So just meeting them where they're at and helping them on their way through.
And I to that point, remembering that everyone crosses the edge with their own time and pace, honoring that, allowing that to happen, and not forcing it was a big learning for us. So we saw ourselves as enablers, introducing these concepts, exposing them to people, but allowing them to basically go through their own journey. That mix of have that educate, mentor, coach. So educating new concepts and then mentoring to basically have high level of adoption, and then go back to your coaching stance and invite over inflict.
Yeah, I was going to just say that, and then you popped in. Do we want to go to the next one?
I think with the time that we have, let's share our individual journeys as well.
Yeah. For me, I'll jump in. Is that okay?
Please.
Yeah. For me personally, I feel throughout the process and being part of the change, it's this internal, such internal tension, such heat within you or within me. And I feel I've never really been in my own much. I've never been in my head more than I've ever been in this, going through this journey, and thinking things like, oh my God, is this journey at odds with my own personal values? I hate conflict. I want to reduce confrontation, but you're bringing in the change, you're bringing in the conflict, and it's it's creating all this heat for everyone. But then also that's a short-term view, not the long-term view as well. So trying to embrace where I'm at on my own vertical development within this, and it is such a journey. The ebbs and flows. I catch myself in reactive territory, or fearful of something. I have a cry to someone about it. Feel so good about it later. Be back on the other side, purpose and passion. So yeah, it's been such a journey. Ups and downs, ebbs and flows. Just being kind to yourself, being kind to each other. We're all on the journey together.
Yeah, thanks, Ash. And I think that oscillation between the two modes that you see at the top, having clear sense of purpose and have passion and drive actions versus we've got a problem, and then I'm fearful of what I'm going to do, and then reacting to it. We could see that happening, but I think we've been rewarded by seeing the changes over, specifically around the last 6 months. I attended one of the ceremonies from one of the value streams today, and the level of maturity was just amazing. And sorry for the noise in the background. I personally doubted my skills many times. I was questions like, should we be doing this? Like the skeptics, I was like, are these proven? Are they going to actually work? Definitely I've been there, but my motto is being a contribution, making a dent, do your part, and that's all you can do. And hopefully that has been a contribution to your journey as well. And again, we wanted to share with you that some of these changes might sound impossible in bigger organizations. If you're thinking about, how the hell I'm going to do this in my super red organizations, like super traditional, you can start small. You can start with pilot, the whole concept of, orange dots in a teal world. You can have your own team, impact your own team, and create a good working environment. And then you might inspire someone else to do so. There are, by the way, many examples around the world, specifically in Europe, that big banks and big corporates are actually in US as well, that have moved towards self-organizing and self-managing teams, and they've been thriving. So there are many good examples out there. Thanks again for the time. Back to you, Derek, Rowan.
Thank you. So, folks, we've now reached our Q&A segment. Before we kick off, a round of applause to Saman and Ash.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Saman and Ash. That was amazing from my perspective. Feel free to do a big reaction. A few of you are doing the clapping, right? It deserves lots of that.
Okay, folks, so a few details is that I invite you now to add any questions that you have from, I guess, Saman and Ash's story or experience. We do have one which was posed during the talk, and that's from Patrick Fernando, and it's on micro narratives being captured. So, Patrick, are you there?
Yeah, hi. I'm curious to know how frequent you are capturing micro narratives. I heard this from Snowden, particularly during the height of COVID, where they were working with, I think, NHS. I don't remember if my memory serves me right. Like real-time capture of narratives from people to avoid retrospective coherence, I suppose. And you did put up a slide around like capturing narratives from people within the organization, and I was wondering how frequent you capture that to build that cultural landscape.
Yeah, very timely topic. Ash was planning for the next one, but I'll share mine and let Ash talk about the employee engagement server one. The official one, and separate the story, but using simple constellations. So that whole circle of look it up, constellations, informal constellations is one practice. It's basically a more quick way of sense making by asking people, hey, recently we just had a town hall meeting. We called them Lumery Live. And after we shared some basically new strategy, we quickly went back to like PMs and asked people to start asking them, what did you get? What did you make sense of this? So a narrative was coming back, and we were self-signifying it. Basically, is this a positive narrative, and trying to build a picture. So I think now it has been built into some ways of working of teams into the retros, but I wouldn't say is as frequent as we want it to be. Look it up. Bridgewater have got an app called Dot Collector. Mm-hmm. Dot Collector was a Zoom add-on that you could, on the fly, basically every time that you're meeting, you could collect data on a daily basis. Unfortunately, our limitations are technology. Dot Collector was made public, and then they took it out from the community apps. But at the moment, it's just having the right tool that enables us to do that. David Snowden's tool, SenseMaker, is one expensive. Previously was only sold by consulting services. And so simple answer from my side. We want to do it more. It's a bit cumbersome from a technology perspective.
Yeah. And from the employee engagement front, like, yeah, we're only speaking about it today. Our intention is to do it on a quarterly basis. I mean, I would be loving to do this all the time, but even on a quarterly basis, like the amount of questions and data that comes from it, it can actually be like very overwhelming if you've got like 20 key factors that you're measuring on. So, but yeah, our intention at the moment is on a quarterly basis, but in between, there's other things that we can collect micro narratives on. Like, I don't know, for me, personally, and wearing my, you know, HR dynamic role, you know, speaking to leads or accountability lines that are going through things like performance management, like I can of people, I hear them, I speak to them on a somewhat daily basis. I understand from them what their you know, their challenges are that they're seeing, or you know, what even in the processes or the practices that they're trying to, you know, follow. And even on that front, like I can make sense of, oh, you know, there's tension here on how to give and receive feedback. And I've seen that in the other case as well. And so just building up cases and other sensing of what's actually happening and what's bubbling up to the surface and what are those tensions. And then we can like respond to that when it comes up too. So all in all, there's formal ways that we collect those micro narratives, but there's also a lot of sense making that sort of happens in between, in given our context and conversations with people across the business, and proactively reaching out for it, as well as Saman mentioned too, after events like our Lumery Live or, you know, something like that too. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So we've got a question from Anthony on role flexibility.
Yeah, hi, thanks for that. That was very interesting, and I wouldn't mind trying to work in a place like that. It sounds very interesting. But the reason I'm asking about role flexibility is you've come from a startup into this reorganization, and I imagine that in a startup, part of its flexibility is that people assume roles as needed. Kind of, you know, you're all at the coalface at the beginning, whereas as it gets bigger, you pointed out the problems that occur, and then you spoke about defining roles, and you talked about naming them, and yeah, they're dynamic, flexible ones. I get that, but my question would be, can the act of naming them actually, like, if you don't name some things, can they get lost in the process? And I kind of ask that also in context of non-startups going towards this kind of organizational structure, because, you know, they have position descriptions, which really a lot of the time they're a waste of time and money. But they're these big documents that are probably even worse than one person having multiple roles. But you can kind of see that in both cases, it could be seriously easy to actually have roles get lost or not recognized. I think of the really old ancient example of the tea lady. You know, the tea lady would go around all the places, and when she gets up to the CEOs, he says, "Oh, what's it like?" And she says, "Oh, you know, the workers are really pissed off and all this." And she was a different but she should have, there should be a tea lady role, but who's going to actually name the tea lady role?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Thank you so much. And I totally I don't think necessarily that we do this perfectly at all. Like, we're still building our muscle and habit around dynamic roles, and yeah, we'd love to spend, I'm sure, so much time on enabling this, but, you know, micro nudges here and there to get the habit into you know, people's systems and how they work. But that's also something that has been raised, I think, by one of our value stream leads recently as well, like people falling through the cracks in a different context as well, potentially, like maybe the supporting line or accountability line hasn't necessarily been like activated in the right ways. And so there could be like a well-being thing that isn't being hasn't been picked up as well. So like falling through the cracks is like a role thing, but it can also like come out in other areas for different things as well. But to your point, I guess the the ethos behind dynamic roles is that it's something that is like continuously looked at. And if you're energizing a role, that you are responsible for communicating it. Like part of energizing your role is saying, hey team, I am the, you know, the HR person, I do X, Y, Z, like this is what you can rely on me to do. And so if the whole team is communicating their roles and then something outside of that is happening, hey team, there's a tension here. Who's doing that? Is that a role that like, is that something that we haven't picked up? Then, okay, let's, you know, do a governance process. Let's put a like title on it. Let's put a purpose on it. And let's, you know, jot down a few accountabilities and competencies and name that, and someone can energize that role.
So if everyone keeps in mind that this can happen and that dynamic role creation can take place, then I suppose it's a matter of maturity. How well you start to do it, because as you all start to cope with all the new system, you get more maturity would help you. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, Anthony, reality of the situation, the things that happened immediately by just introducing the concept. One, allowing people to do roles outside of their department. That was an immediate thing, as if you have liberated people from that box. So you could see consultants coming and joining the product team and becoming product owners, basically. That happened immediately without any need. So that was one. Two, acknowledging all the inner roles, that's the ORSC language, the tea lady, so the peacemaker, the devil's advocate, which shows a need for a function in the system that is not recognized, the implicit to explicit, acknowledging that happened as well. And some of the teams are managing it really well. So for example, I'll give you a practical example of different levels of product ownership. If you're familiar with the concept of 5 levels of different product ownership, there's a difference between the backlog manager, the product shaper, who's hands-on doing the product design and development, and someone who is worrying about vision and strategy. There might be one person, and in bigger teams, there might be multiple. And you can easily separate those as well. So it's acknowledging that. The concept introduced by Holacracy talks about it being like a code repo that gets checked in and checked out on a daily basis. So this is the extent of self-organization and self-management that this can be. We are not at that stage, but some of the practical examples is already giving us the language to call the different functions that people are playing. The basic concept of roles versus soul was very interesting as well. We always design job descriptions for the people, not for the system. Meaning that you have employed someone or you've got someone, you write job description based on their needs and their talents and skills versus what the system needs. This dynamic roles concept enables you to write what the system needs, and people come and energize. So there is a difference between the role and the soul who is energizing it. And so these are some, like, let's say, principle-based fundamental changes that have created, getting it right. Is this the whole system? Are we updating them regularly? Hell no. I'm not sure if we can do it, but there are some immediate benefits that we have realized.
Yeah, thank you. And I can see how going through that process will suddenly activate everyone's mind to try to identify their roles and those that they depend on. And so, yeah, thank you.
I'll just add, it's a really good recognition piece as well. Like someone could have like 10 different roles and like, holy crap, like go on you. Like it plays into other things, let alone like role flexibility. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out. There's other like added benefits to it as well from an employee engagement perspective.
Thank you.
Folks, just doing a check-in on time. We might have to leave soon, so I guess I might open the floor up right now. Are there any final burning questions that you would like to ask Ash or Saman? Lucky last.
I think Patrick had one, but if anyone's sitting on a question, please speak up now.
Oh, no, it's not a question. It's just curious to understand how they were able to do the micronarratives, because I feel like it's deliberate journaling and it takes a lot of practice, and
it does, Patrick.
It takes a lot of practice for it to be a habit.
And I think is like some of these changes are becoming again topic of today's conversation, like a new language that we use, and it start to become, people are using the same thing. That was the magic that we were talking about, enabling change agents. When we were enabling them, when they go to their teams, you will see, you attend the retro, and all of a sudden you see, they're actually using these practices. So takes time. It has been a 2-year journey. There's a book called Made Without Managers.
Yep.
It's a health tech company in UK. They are in a 5-year journey. If you find, there are many podcasts, if you look them up, there are podcasts about their journey. You can see what happens in 5 years and what level of maturity is enabled after 5 years. It's just highlighting that it takes time.
Excellent. And Saman and Ash, question is that any recommendations on if the group here would like to sort of keep in touch on seeing, how the Lumery journey is going? What's the best way to do that?
Well, keep in touch on LinkedIn. We definitely will try to share more as we learn about things. We've got some, we wanted to make sure that these learnings are validated as well. For example, time to market and commercial awareness of like that mini enterprise, some of the things that have been working really well. We could see that while we could not sell previously to the, late adopters of the market, we can sell now. The evolution of the product is definitely there in a fast feedback loop. So anyway, LinkedIn would be the place, and we will try to share as much as we can there as well.
Thanks very much. Over to you, Ron.
Wonderful. So thank you once again, Saman and Ash. Thank you for all that Q&A time as well. Hopefully you can see now why I was so keen to have this happen tonight. Yeah, I just think a lot of times we talk about these things as hypothetical, maybe nirvana type of kind of things to work towards, but this is actually happening, right? And it's just wonderful to hear a real story, of a real Australian organization pursuing this journey. So awesome. Who feels a bit inspired maybe to at least look into some of these things? I've written down a list of things I want to read up more on. Yeah, and I think let's keep in touch, because it sounds like a great example of what can happen in some organizations, and hopefully can rub off on others. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks for having us. Good to see you all. Meet you
See you
all.
at the next meetup.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron,
Thank
for
you.
all the references.
Thank you to everyone else who added
Yeah.
references too. And yeah, thanks so much for sharing them, Saman and Ash.
No worries.
Thank you.
Getting kind of late here in Sydney, but